Welcome to the Cyber Business Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and share their inspiring stories. Now, let's get started with the show.
Matthew Connor here, host of the Cyber Business Podcast. Today, we're joined by Jean-Philippe Gerbi, CIO at Metropolitan Commercial Bank. Jean-Philippe, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get too far in, a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. Do you know if a hacker's in your system? Most people and most companies don't until it's too late and the hacker's already done damage. A hacker's job is to bypass your security, so companies need a way of knowing when someone's gotten past their security. That's where Cyberlinks comes in. We've partnered with the best cybersecurity companies in the world to be able to provide our clients with the best solutions at the best prices. So whether it's managed SIEM, SOC, EDR, MDR, XDR, you name it, we'll help you find the right solution at the best price. Find out more at cyberlinks.com. That's cyberlynx.com. And now back to our show. Hey, Jean-Philippe, for those who aren't familiar, can you tell us about MC Bank and your role there as CIO?
Sure. So Matthew, Metropolitan Commercial Bank is 25 years old. We celebrated last year going to 26 years. We're a commercial bank located in New York with 6 branches. I joined Metropolitan over 3 years now as the Chief Information Officer, coming from a much larger organization and really joining Metropolitan for all the interesting projects that we have in the pipe.
So can you share with us what some of those interesting projects are?
Yes, sure. So first, we're going through a core transformation, so changing our core banking systems, whether we're talking about deposits, loans, payments, online banking. We're building a data warehouse also, so we can bring a lot of data, so we can present that data to our users so they can use them on a day-to-day basis, whether it's for operational monitoring or for any business decision that they may take based on that data moving forward. And we have plenty of surrounds projects around it that makes all those activities very interesting.
Very cool. So, I mean, that's a pretty sizable project. I mean, the core banking, that is the business. So, I would imagine that that's pretty stressful. What kind of time frame? Just out of curiosity, what kind of time frame does that take? Is that a year-long project, a multi-year project? How do you go about that?
So we're going fast, definitely. When we look at the industry, usually it takes many years to do this type of project. We have decided to do it in a much condensed time frame. We're planning on finishing that project at the end of this year.
Okay. And when did you start? So
we started really, discussion, scoping, RFPs in 2021. And really the project started at the end of or mid 2020. No, at the end of 2022, in fact.
Okay. So basically a 3-year-long project.
3-year-long, yes.
I mean, of actual implementation, right? So
yes.
Wow.
So multifaceted, because on top of that, we're reviewing the business process. Because all those systems being new, we want to make sure that the process on the user side is streamlined so we can accompany moving forward the growth for the bank.
Yeah, no, that's a big process. So I'm always fascinated by the fact that I don't think we've had 2 CIOs on who've had the same kind of career path. And I think you've had a very unique and interesting one. Can you tell everybody? I like to refer to it as your origin story. Like we're all IT, superheroes. So, can you tell us your origin story? How you got into the tech? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like, a lot of people, first time I saw a computer, I was like, oh, wow, that seems cool. And I started to be part of a club where we developed, at the time, it was not what we see today. It was much simpler. But the first computer I touched was an Apple IIe.
Nice.
And then it became my passion. So I decided to become a developer. So that's my background originally. I started as a consultant first, and then joined a bank where I stayed for 23 years with different roles, up to CIO, where I stayed there for 7 years. So definitely, I've been witnessing, the change in technology, or the evolution in technology, in infrastructure, of course, because I was very protective of my application. So wherever it was sitting, you could not touch it unless I understood. So I understood the evolution of infrastructure also, whether it was on premise or on cloud. And underlying, of course, it's all the evolution and the weight of the cybersecurity, because at the end of the day, we need to make sure that we take care of it.
So did you find that transition from being a developer to, kind of into leadership as a CIO? Did you find that to be challenging, or was that kind of a natural transition for you?
I I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but it's my experience. So I don't know if you're going to get some reaction, but being a developer and understanding the infrastructure might be easier than coming from the infrastructure and trying to understand, development, etc. Because there are certain things in the discussion we have where I can see in the back of my mind, the developer logic kicking in. I always say, it's very easy to learn a language. What's more difficult is to think how to implement it.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. I mean, and I think so. I started out very similarly my first computer was a VIC-20, a Commodore VIC-20, and
Yep.
then it was the IBM 8088, and it only booted into BASIC, and so you got the manual and you started writing code, and so that's where I kind of fell in love with coding and computers. And I think for me, it's always kind of served me well to kind of be able to understand what, how the code was written, why it was, and what's going on under the hood, if you will. And so for me, it was always kind of a natural transition. It's like just understanding, I think, like if you understand the mechanics of a car, I think that makes you you're probably going to be a better race car driver when you really understand. You don't necessarily have to be the guy there with the tools, but being able to really understand what's happening, I think that would make you a better driver. So I'm always curious when I meet other people who've kind of started out with as a developer and moved up in tech, what their take on that is. So let me ask you, at the bank, AI is a kind of, well, it is not the topic du jour, but I mean, I suppose it is, right? It is, it's a huge thing that's affecting everybody, I think, positively and negatively. I think more positively than negatively, but I'm kind of curious, from your perspective, at the bank there, where do you see AI playing a role when it comes to banking, especially on the commercial side?
So I think first, when we talk about AI, we have to explain maybe to everyone that we're not talking about Gen AI, because AI has been used for many, many years, especially in banking, in fraud, for example, because of the amount of data to process, to detect, unusual activities. Definitely, you needed some algorithm to do that. And so AI has been used for many, many years. I think the game changer has been really that Gen AI that came up a few years ago, that is totally disrupting, and it continued to disrupt with the evolution to agentic AI now. So interesting words coming out every month, with something new.
Yeah.
And I think there's different areas of the bank where it can impact, from operational teams up to the customer experience. So when you look at the operational teams, there's of course productivity. being able to use and to put at the disposal of everyone Copilot and helping people understanding how to use it, not just for the prompt, but maybe for other productivity activity or activities where productivity could be gained, like writing minutes, generating summary of documents, scanning emails, things like that. That can be very beneficial. Then you have on the IT side the development part where you can ask AI to generate some code for you. That is very interesting. I don't know if you read a lot about the fact that in 2 years there's not going to be any developer anymore. I don't know. I think there's always going to be a need for a human in the loop, because the problem today with AI in development is that it has no notion of security, for instance. So it's going to tell you, hey, you can use this open source service, but somebody needs to vet whatever AI is saying. So the code you're going to be implementing or the open source or tools or libraries that are going to come in, they need to be secure. And that's one of the main concerns, as a CIO that I have. And then it moves to, of course, operational process, up to the customer experience. I mean, chatbots have been there for many, many years, but now they're going to become a bit more intelligent. And we need to be very careful because of the risk of AI with anything related to a bias, for example, where we need to ensure that we not only understand what's under the hood, but also we test it on a regular basis to ensure that what it's generating is not going to be an issue for our customers or for our bank.
Yeah. And now, are you currently exploring any kind of like I guess AI, Gen AI on the customer side? As you replace your core banking systems, is AI going to be a part of that for the user experience?
Probably in the second phase. I think the first phase is to really first implement those new systems with a process that is streamlined. And then after that, you can go back to, okay, what could not be streamlined and can be enhanced. I think it's important for people to understand when we talk about the customer experience, it's not just, having a chatbot that the customer will see. It could be the back end, the fact that you're going to accelerate maybe the decision process, or certain things that would impact the customer. So by being more nimble or faster into what the customers need, that's where the customer experience is going to improve. And that's the part where until we have all those new systems fully implemented, I don't think it's necessary to start looking at AI because we don't know what the end result of that implementation will be in terms of end-to-end process. We have an idea, but I think it's better to wait because, every project, as you go, things are evolving. We find maybe optimization with the vendor on how to do things. So we'll wait for that to be done and then we look at that.
Yeah, no, I think that's where the smart money is. I mean, you don't need to be on the cutting edge, the bleeding edge, be experimenting. I think it makes sense, especially when it's banking. People aren't looking for their bank necessarily to be on the cutting edge of technology. They want to make sure their money's still there. I mean, that's the big one, right? So security becomes really important. Do you see AI playing a role as a defensive, kind of factor or weapon when it comes to banking?
Yes, but unfortunately, it's a dual role because the bad guys are also using AI. So this is where, for anything related to, for example, phishing, I read an interesting article recently where I think it was in Thailand, they were able with AI to generate a fake passport that passed, some of the security control that typically you do on an ID when you do customer onboarding. So I mean, bad actors can use that. You have also, the deep fake where typically you have to scan your face to see if it's matching your ID. This is where also there could be some issue. And then it's the voice, on that, you just need a few seconds of voice to be able to recreate a whole conversation. And then you can call, a contact center, for example, and impersonate a customer. So it's used by bad actors, and now it's used also to counter all of that. So it's a Jekyll and Hyde.
So let me ask you, I mean, on the banking side, I mean, you kind of touched on it there, things like, using your voice as a form of authentication. Um, so what do you see in store for the future of security there? What are, with deep fakes in mind, is it one of those things where it's like, look, we should steer clear of things like voice as a form of authentication? Is that where you see that going, and or what's the future hold there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's, for me, it was not really to say that it's used for a form of authentication, but more, if you have a familiar voice calling maybe a contact center, and people would be maybe less, on their toes to be, okay, is it really the person? More that where it can be a bit dangerous. I don't think it's a good idea to have a voice as a way of authenticating. Definitely. So I don't know how. What I saw existing was more, matching a voice to a face in a video where you see AI being used to really say, no, that's not the voice of that face. So at least there's something on the voice itself. So far, I did not see much going on. But definitely something needs to be looked at, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if there's a way of kind of defending against that. I know that Chase uses, voice, and I think it was maybe United. I want to say their customer service, but I'm pretty sure Chase uses that as one of the things where it's like use your voice as your password. I think they call it. Where when you call in and you're talking to them, you're just like, yeah, okay. And I've never actually used it. I tell them okay several times to go ahead and use my voice. I'll try it out. Let's see what that's like. But it does make me wonder if perhaps there is enough kind of nuance and technology in that to where just like when let's say ChatGPT generates some text, oh, you can run it through and there's like the fingerprint that, okay, they put in kind of like invisible to human text, so it could know that, oh, this was AI generated. I wonder if the same holds true of voice when they kind of deep fake it, if there's some way of really, of knowing. That's interesting. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
maybe in the pattern of a voice, looking at it and say, if something is doesn't make sense because it's a bit flat, maybe, where usually when you speak, it's gonna go up and down and this and that. So I don't know if it's gonna be that, but now I'm curious. Maybe I'm gonna look at Chase to see how it works.
yeah, no, it's really fascinating because it's funny. I heard I think it was Jamie Dimon talking about how many attacks they have a day, and it's an astronomical sum. I mean, they're moving an astronomical amount of money, and the number of attempts on their network it is insane. I mean, it's I don't know if it was millions in a minute, but it's a large amount that they're constantly under attack. So my thinking is if they think that if they've got a way to use voice as a password, it's probably they probably thought it through a lot, and they've probably got it down to it'd be interesting to see if that's something that they own, that they've developed, or if it's something that with a lot of the financial services where somebody's developed it and now they sell it as a product to the banks. That's an interesting one. I don't know. Have you seen that as like a product being offered to banks?
No, no, not even. That's why I was a bit surprised. I never
Yeah,
heard of that. Because, usually banks are very cautious about the way to authenticate customers.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm
yeah.
gonna have to look at that definitely.
Yeah, really interesting. And then, I get to thinking about how AI can be used. I mean, and I get that machine language, the machine learning has been as it's grown and it's gotten better over the years. And to your point, it had been, it's been used for 10 years plus now, especially in the financial, sector, to identify risky, behaviors or unusual transactions. And I think we all remember the early days where you were getting hit all the time with fraud alerts. A transaction that you normally do still gets hit, and I think it's come a long way. I'll be really interested to see how you know how that progresses in the industry. How AI kind of secures that, because I think this battle between the good guys and the bad guys, it really is kind of an arms race, right? Where they got nukes, we've got nukes, and it just kind of everybody keeps using the technology to, because you have to. The bad guys are using AI, we have to use AI to defend it.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be fascinating to see which way that goes, especially in the financial sector, because if the bad guys can get in and just start taking everybody's money, that's bad for everybody, right? It's one thing to con somebody out of their access to their account and you wire some money out. That's one thing. But if they have free access, that's a whole nother one. So I'm curious to see where that goes. And do you have any, from your perspective, is that it's something that you guys are actively working on, or where do you see that going in the future?
Look, I think first the difficulty, is that it's what you look at and what you're dependent on, because you have third-party service providers also, where you have a dependence. We saw many years ago with SolarWinds, for instance,
Yep.
where it was a bit of a backdoor for bad actors to be able to go into banks and other industries. So it's definitely something that we look at. I don't know how many hours per week I spent on security with the CISO, just to make sure that we understand what's happening. Because I always tell people, it's like when you have a house, you get robbed the first time, so you're going to build a fence. Next time they are going to come with a ladder. So you're going to say, okay, maybe the fence needs to be higher. Well, the ladder will be higher also. So it's a race each time.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of things, going on, even where we're talking about ransomware as a service, things like that. So we need to stay on top of it.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think for everybody, I love your house analogy, the getting robbed. I think that's a great way to put it. Yep. So that's that's really interesting. Well, let's shift a little bit, right? So I don't think that any two people that we've had on the podcast also have the same way of kind of finding and hiring good talent. I think that's always a challenge. And as we talk about AI being a thing that kind of replaces people, I see it more as it enhances people. I think they're now supercharged. So now your developer has the power of 7 developers, because they're not spending 7 hours banging their head against the desk. They simply drop it into into AI and oh, there's the answer. Well, crap, which is great, fantastic. But that's to your point earlier. I think the people are always going to be important. So along those lines, what's your process of finding and retaining good talent?
So, I mean, we're still small in terms of team, and well, we don't have a huge hiring. We have a lot of people who have been with us. Of course, you always go to the people first, for sure. So I have 2 people in my team. I've been working with them for many years, and then they know people. I think there's a lot around the culture you create also in your team. A lot of time people say, you don't leave an organization, you leave your manager. I think creating a culture of collaboration, no finger pointing, communicating a lot about what we're doing and why, I think is also important. respecting certain boundaries. Sometimes I know that I have to tell people, look, why are you online? I remember there was a guy on Thanksgiving. He sent me something. I'm like, what are you doing? Just spend it, with your team. So I prefer, not having to call people because if I can avoid that, but if I need them, they're ready to step in because there's an issue or something. But I don't want them to get burned out. Very important. And then there's a lot of contact. So typically, if my team is outside of my office, if I need to talk to them, I'm not going to send them an email. I'm going to walk to them. So we have a lot of contacts there. So, and they know that my door is always open. So that's also important for me. So they know that if there is anything, whether it's a professional issue, personal issue, I'm there. And then we try sometimes, to brainstorm a little bit. If there is something, okay, let's try to figure out how we can resolve that. Then I think what is important is for everyone, including myself, to try to learn a little bit what's going on. So reading, I think you have so many things available on the internet that allow you, to stay a little bit on top of what's going on. I think it's very important to do that because you can't always have training. I think a lot it's reading articles. YouTube is great for a lot of things, on technology, just to have even maybe just a small introduction about the technology. I always encourage people to look at it, look there. And I always tell people, look, if you don't understand, don't be afraid to say that you don't understand. I do that. I don't feel ridiculous because at the end, look, I cannot be an expert now. That's why I have people working with me. If I don't understand, I'm going to help them. I'm not shy, and they should not either. And I think that creates, a certain culture where people feel comfortable, there's some inclusion there. And that's one of the reasons they want to stay with us.
I think that's a huge point, and I think a lot of people, I don't think they give it enough value because the reality is, especially now, that everything is advancing so quickly. It is impossible to be an expert in any one thing now. I mean, you rewind 30, 40 years ago, heck, rewind 200 years ago, you could be an expert in a lot of things and know everything there is to know about everything in that on that subject. Rewind 30, 40 years ago, okay, maybe one thing. Rewind now, please. There's 100,000 things you've got to be up on, and you can't be an expert in even one of them because it goes so deep and and it's going so fast. There's just no way. So I think that's a really brilliant idea of building the culture of it's okay not to be an expert. I don't know the answer to that, and let's go find out. And then I think you're right. It makes people feel comfortable that they can they don't have to know everything. They can go look it up. They can feel comfortable that they don't have to be perfect, which I think is really valuable for people because there's no way to feel like an expert these days unless you're delusional. Like
Yeah.
you gotta be fully crazy to think I mean, you can be smart and you can know a lot of stuff and that can be your area and you can be good at it, but I don't know. I would be very cautious of somebody claiming to be an expert in something these days because especially technology related. Like it's fine if it's woodwork, sure. Watchmaking, sure. But those things are, centuries old. But AI, technology, get out of here. Come on. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's
And
fantastic.
Matthew, it's similar to my comment before. Anybody can learn a language, but actually, it's how do you apply it? Technology, it's really that across the board. You can know whatever technology. If you don't know how to apply it, it's useless anyway.
Yeah. Now, I couldn't agree more. And then back to your earlier point of AI not replacing people. I don't think we're gonna live in a world where there's AI doing maybe someday, but no time soon will AI be replacing all the developers. If you do that now, like Meta's saying that in a few years they're gonna replace yeah, go ahead and replace all your junior developers with AI. And then fast forward 5 years from there, and now, oh wait, you have no junior developers coming up, and your senior developers have left. And so what are you left with? It's you and AI, Zuck. That's it. Like that doesn't even make sense. So I get it, but at the same time, not when they're so supercharged now. With the power of AI behind a developer, why do you need to let everybody go when you can now just do 10 times more as an organization? It doesn't make sense to me. I would say we're going to grow to be 10 times better, rather than we're going to shrink our workforce by a 10th and stay exactly where we are. Like, what kind of sense does that make? Right?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yep. I think that's what the future has in store for us. But we'll see. I mean, ultimately, who knows? What the world looks like in 20 years. That's crazy. But Jean-Philippe, I tell you, this has been an absolute blast having you on. I can't thank you enough for coming on. But before we go, can you tell everybody where they can find out more about you and more about MC Bank?
Sure. So, of course, on LinkedIn for both the bank and myself, you can find me there. And then if you go to mcbankny.com, you're going to be able to see our website with a lot of information.
Fantastic. Well, Jean-Philippe, until next time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thanks for listening to the Cyber Business Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.